Welcome, Thrivers, to this week's episode of Women Thriving in Business podcast. My guest today is Lisa Baker, who is the founder and CEO of Ascentum. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so glad to be with you today, Nikki.
Yay. So let's just get started. So Lisa, tell us all about your business and then what got you started on your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, so my business, Ascentum, is a coaching practice. I am so privileged to have the honor of working with high-performing professionals, especially women and people of color who are looking to grow. They're wanting to grow their business or grow in their career, grow their finances. And I get the privilege of guiding them on that journey, their journey to success. And what got me started doing that, I spent 30 years in corporate America, leading large teams, running portfolios of business. My last role, I was the SVP and general manager leading the eBay credit portfolio, which is a $2.5 billion book of business. And you can imagine in that role, I had the opportunity of coaching, mentoring, and sponsoring people in that. And that's the part of the job that I really loved the most. And so I chose to retire early and focus on my passion for helping people to grow.
I love that. And I'm so happy that you did. Lisa, as you can imagine, there's probably lots of folks who are in the position you were in. They've spent a long time in their corporate career and they really are interested in pursuing their passions. What was it that gave you that push, that impetus to really walk away from what you knew and what you had done for so long and that identity in order to start your own business?
That's a great question because it's not an easy thing to do. You get so comfortable and even confident in who you are as an executive and being in business, whatever your role may be. But there were two things that really pushed me. The first was just this internal sense. So you can say it was my spirit, if you will, that was telling me it was time to do something different. I wasn't 100% sure of what that different thing was, but I just knew that there was more available to me, more that I wanted to give to the world. And so I'm like, okay, I think it's time for me to do something different. Now, what really pushed me to say now is the time to do it was we created a voluntary severance program at Synchrony during COVID in an effort to get people to voluntarily leave so that we would not have to involuntarily lay off people or lay off as many people. And the package was candidly a very good one that was hard to turn down. And so since I had this sense that it was time for me to move on and do something different, and there was a financial incentive to do it now, that's what really pushed me to go ahead and make the decision.
And as you were thinking about what different looked like, how did you settle on coaching versus staying in a similar business in the finance world, in this technology world? What was it that made you say, I want to go into coaching?
It's funny because before I left the company, there was a group of people, they were part of our African American network that I was just leading a roundtable with them. It was an opportunity for them to interact with a senior leader in the business. And I shared with them that I was going to be leaving. And one of the members of that group said to me, oh my God, that's so exciting. Well, when you start your coaching practice, let me know because I want to work with you. Now, I had never mentioned a coaching practice. It wasn't something that was in my mind to do. And so I found it really interesting that she said that. She just assumed that that's what I would do. But the other thing that happened in working with that group and others, I thought to myself, really, like, this is what I love. And I said to that group in particular, this has been the best part of my day, just spending time with you guys. And if I could find a way to do this full time or get paid to do this, that's what I'd do. And so after I left the company and had that downtime to be free, have that white space to think and plan, it just occurred to me, well, you can get paid to do that. You can take the part of the job that you love, coaching people, mentoring, offering guidance and support, and make that your work. And so it just started to unfold in that way. One of the things that I often say to people is to find what your area of greatness is and work in that space because that's where you're going to thrive.
I love that. As you were thinking about starting a business, so you had decided, like, this is the thing I want to do. After spending 30 years in corporate, what were some of the challenges or even mindsets that you had to work through to go from being an employee to now? And you were in charge in many ways
Mhm.
in your business, you were running a P&L. But when it's just you, right? And you're creating this business, and now, like, you are really totally in charge. What were some of the mind shifts or challenges that you had to work through in going from being an employee to being an entrepreneur?
Their mindset shift is the big piece of it. And it starts with that because the mindset of an employee is very different than the mindset of an owner. And even running a P&L, you're operating a business, you really are. But the resources that are required to run that business are not your own. You have the company that's providing all of that. And so you have to make this leap, this shift in your thinking about what really matters, about managing your resources, time being the biggest and most valuable one of those. And then knowing how you're going to fund your business. There's a classic catch 22 that all entrepreneurs deal with, and that is you have to have money to invest so that you can attract clients and make money, but you need to make some money so that you have it to invest. Making that shift around, okay, how do I manage resources? Where do I find the funding to do all of those things that you have to do well before you even get your first client?
As you were identifying, okay, these are the resources I need to have. This is how I need to think about funding it, even how managing time. I will say that's probably been the biggest thing. Like when you control your time, which you don't realize how much of your time is dictated by others when you work for an organization. And now, as an entrepreneur, as an owner, you manage your time. What were some of the tools, techniques, resources that you leverage in order to actually make that shift?
Yeah, one of the biggest things that you have to do, especially when it comes to managing your time, you literally have to be a beast when it comes to your calendar and really learning what to say yes to, and even more importantly, what to say no to, because you only have so many hours in the day and there's so much that's required of you. And so getting really clear about what matters and what you value and prioritizing those things at the top of your agenda so that you take care of those big important things first and that you know what to say no to because it doesn't fit with your values. It's not generating income or it would take you off the path that is what's important for now. That is a skill that you must have, I would say, especially for us women, because we often are so accommodating. We don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. We feel like we have to say yes to everything, but you cannot do that if you're going to run a successful business. You really do have to know when to say no and to limit your time and exposure to things that aren't driving you toward your goals in business.
I think you make a really important point. And I was just talking to a fellow entrepreneur last week, and we were talking about the fact that when you say yes to things, you are saying no to something else. So you really need to be clear about what that yes cost,
Yeah, that's good.
because there is an opportunity cost. There is something else. If it's not a hell yes, then it's hell no. Because if I'm a lukewarm yes, then that means I'm blocking something else that is probably more productive, more valuable. I can have more impact, right? And
Yeah.
so that idea of like being very conscious about your yes, being very conscious about your no is super important.
And learning to delegate too, because especially when you start, you're typically a solopreneur when you begin. And so you're doing the bulk of the work, but you really do have to find the things that you can outsource or delegate to someone else that they can do so that you can focus on the things that only you can do. It is so important because that's going to free up your time so
Mhm.
that you can do those things that are generating income and that really matter for the success of your business and building your brand.
As you work with clients, what are some of those things that you really have to counsel and advise people on around delegating?
The thing that I counsel them most around is you say you've delegated something, but then you take it back. Or you're so
Mm.
involved in it that you really haven't fully delegated. So it's being really, really good about selecting the right talent, the right skills, background, the right fit for your culture that you're trying to create, fit for your brand, and frankly, fit with your working style and personality. That gives you the confidence that you can delegate something and leave it with them. And I'm really fortunate in that I have a team of people, contractors, and people that support Ascentum that I can totally trust. I know that if I give something over to them, it is going to be done and it's going to be done well. Now, that's not to say that I don't check it. I do, but it's much easier. And when you check things a few times and they sort of get you, they get your voice, they get the brand, get what you're looking for, then you can do less of that inspecting so that you can do more of the things that really matter.
As you mentioned, you spent 30 years in corporate, and we've all read about and or experienced some of the challenges that can come with being a woman, and especially a Black woman in corporate. What would you say were some of your lessons learned, as well as what actually helped you succeed in your corporate career?
Yeah, one of the lessons that I learned, and it's part of what I coach people around today, is the importance of connection. You have to get really good at building meaningful relationships. And I'm not talking about just networking with people where you know a little bit about someone or you know their name, but I mean really getting to know people and more importantly, allowing them to get to know you because people want to work with and promote folks that they know, like, and trust. And you can't build that trust and you can't get to that knowing without really investing time in building meaningful connections, because that's going to give you the influence that you need to get things done, to get access to what you want, to get the opportunities, the promotions, all of that. It comes from your influence, and that comes from having connections. And I wish I had learned that much earlier in my career. I could have gone much further, much faster had I known that. The other thing I would say is you have to really know who you are. That is so key. Knowing who you are, knowing what your strengths are, what you bring to the table so that you can operate from a place of confidence and knowing your worth. Because so often we, especially as women and people of color in the workplace, we're often trying to fit or conform ourselves to what we think is the expected norm or standard in the corporate culture that we're in. And we think that that's what's going to help us to be successful. But what I have found is that the opposite of that is really more true. When you get comfortable in your own skin and you show up as your authentic self confidently, that sets you apart. It makes you distinct. And then because you know people, they know the real you. That actually helps you to get promoted, move further, get those opportunities because you're not trying to be some carbon copy of someone else. That does not work.
Mhm. Yeah, and I can imagine one of the things that happens if you do follow that path of trying to fit in, you're always trying to fit in, right? So there's
Yes.
this constant tension between who you are
Yeah.
and who you are pretending to be.
Yeah. And people will notice that because you're going to come off as being disingenuous because you are in a way. It just doesn't work. And it's not comfortable. It doesn't feel good. Trying to pretend to be something that you aren't is just not healthy for you. It's not great for the organization. Ultimately, it's going to fail. So why not figure out who you really are, what you value, what you bring to the table, and then show up?
During your time in corporate, have you found that to be a generational challenge? Because I feel like Gen X and above, we were told to fit in, right?
That's
Like,
right.
here's the path. I think younger generations are like, this is my whole self, love it or don't,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so,
I think it very much is generational. You're right. The younger people come into the spaces that they enter into with this expectation that they get to be themselves. Maybe us older folks need to just accept them as they are. And so there is this healthy balance, right? You do need to fit within the organization that you're in, but that doesn't mean you are conform yourself to some shape that really isn't you. It is being who you are authentically, but also understanding the norms and what is acceptable in the environments that you're in.
mhm.
Yeah.
Who are you working with typically? Like your typical client that you work with nowadays?
Yeah, my typical client, first of all, I describe her. as a high performing professional. This is someone who is already, by most any standards, successful. So she has likely been working in her space, whatever that is, for at least 15 years. If she is in corporate America, she's likely a VP, a managing director. Like, she is a boss in her own right. And she is someone who is the go-to person. Most people rely on her. She's the one that people come to for advice and assistance. So she portrays this strength and power. But underneath all of that, there is something else that's often going on. And that is, she doesn't have someone often that she can turn to, because people see her as being so strong and having it all together. So when she needs help, she's like, well, where do I go?
Mm.
Who do I look to for guidance? And even though she's successful, she knows that there is much more that is available to her, and she wants more. She's not always sure, though, exactly how to get it.
Right. I love that. And that describes so many people that I know. I think that is the struggle. Like, you've been successful and you're like, and what else? And everybody's telling you, like, you got it all. What else could you want?
What else could you want? I mean, why would you want more? Or she's had this desire to reach a certain level in her business or a certain level in corporate, and she gets there and then realizes, this isn't what I thought it would be. Because so often we have goals that we set for ourselves that really are based on the world's model or standard for success and not our own. And so we do all the things that they tell us we should do to be successful. And then we do succeed in that. But we get there and it's not fulfilling, because it's not really the life that is uniquely designed for us. And so my work, and the part of what I do that I just love so much, is helping people to get really clear about who they are, what they value, and what their unique definition of success is. And then I help them to discover their area of greatness. And for me, that means this space where three things really come together. It is your strengths, those things that you are just naturally good at and gifted at doing, your passions, the things that you love, what you enjoy, what fills you up and makes you excited about starting your day. And then the piece that people often miss, and that is your purpose. Why are you here? What's the impact that you want to make on the world? And when you can get those things aligned, your strengths with your passion, and then you're doing something that's right on purpose for you, that's your area of greatness. And when you can operate in that space, the whole world changes for you. So much opens up to you. There's so many possibilities in that space. There's no competition in that space, because nobody has your unique combination of those things.
Right. Yeah, I can just see, I mean, your face is lighting up as you're, I feel like you're shining on me, like, your greatness. That is wonderful that you're able to make that transformation or guide that transformation for your clients. So Lisa, as you think about your time in business, what would you say has been your biggest challenge?
Ooh, the biggest challenge for me in business, I think, first of all, was making that shift from corporate Lisa to business owner Lisa. I mean, that was 30 years of my life working in that corporate space, and then allowing myself to be reinvented, to rebrand myself and reintroduce myself to the world, if you will, as Lisa, the entrepreneur. That was a big shift and challenge. Now that I've made that shift, the new challenge is, as I said, just managing my time and balancing all of these things that I want to do. I have so many ideas, so many things that I want to do. And it's finding the time and the financial resources to make it all happen.
What would you say is an accomplishment you're most proud of?
Oh my gosh, there's two things that immediately spring to mind for me. So one is that Ascentum recently won an award in the Women's World Awards, and it's called a Globee. We were awarded a Globee for Women-Owned Startup of the Year for business services. And I'm so proud of that, to be a new business and to get that recognition in a competition with women entrepreneurs from around the world is just more than I ever could have imagined.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so proud of that. But beyond that, it is the results and the transformation that's happening for my clients. That is truly why I'm here. And that is what I'm most proud of. I think of people like my client who owns a construction company, which how many women are in the construction business, but she has a construction management company. And through coaching, as we talked about what she really wants to do and what matters to her, she really discovered that her purpose is really different than what she thought it was. And so now she's working to create an NGO that's allowing her to do what she really wants to do. And so that kind of win, helping someone to get to that place, that's what I'm so proud of. So whether it's like that or someone who gets promoted, a client who recently got promoted to their first senior vice president level role that they had been working for years to get to. Within a few months of coaching, they were able to break through and get that. It's like, yes, coaching works, and I get to be a part of the journey.
I love that. Congratulations on both of those. I think you just demonstrated the breadth of the clients that you work with, the women that you work with, whether they be entrepreneurs or in corporate careers, the power of, as you said, getting them to operate in their genius. I love that. So when we first talked, as we were organizing or planning this talk, you talked a bit about your family structure and how that has really guided you along the way. So could you tell us a little bit about how you feel your family and your upbringing led you to be successful in corporate and then being successful in making this transition to business ownership?
Yeah, it's really interesting because one might think, based on my family structure, that I would not be successful in the sense that neither of my parents even made it out of grade school. So they had very limited education. They were married very young, had lots of children, kind of what you might think of as a bit stereotypical for a family from the South. But what they did have and what they imparted to me that has allowed me to be successful is they had this drive, this passion, and this desire to create a better life for their family than they had. They had a strong work ethic that was just incredible. And so I've inherited that based on the dynamics in my household growing up. I learned to be a planner, to think ahead and to anticipate problems that might arise and then fix them or correct them before they could happen. And it's all of those things that I actually used in business and corporate space to be successful, and very much that I use now. So much of success in business is about planning and having a strategy to work through any obstacles that might come and having a plan for your success. And I can absolutely say that I got that from my parents and how they lived their life and the values that they instilled in me.
I love that. And I think you highlight the fact that we all get gifts, right, from our family structure. Like you said, while your background might not have predicted future success if you look at it from a conventional standpoint, but all those lessons that you learned were really very much in line with how you can be successful going forward in life. And I know you mentioned the story, which I found fascinating, of your parents actually leaving and moving to St. Louis very early in their marriage because they did want to impart that better life. So I love that story. And I know that was probably challenging and whatnot. But as you said, that whole work ethic and that moving literally heaven and earth to make a better way for their children.
Yeah, and that's again part of what they imparted in me. So my parents, they were in Atlanta. It was 1958. They packed up all of their worldly possessions, and at that time they had 7 children. I was not born yet, but they had 7 children, 2 adults, all their possessions in a Ford Falcon, and they drove from Atlanta to St. Louis for a better life. So they were willing to take a risk to move out of their comfort zone for the hope of something better. Now, they couldn't have known for sure that they would be any more successful in St. Louis than they were in Atlanta, but they knew that they needed to change, to do something different if they were going to have a better life. And they landed jobs when they got to St. Louis. They were what I would describe as the help. They both worked for the same wealthy family in St. Louis. My dad was a gardener, chauffeur, and handyman for the family. And my mom was the caretaker for the children, the maid, the cook for the family. And my mom told me that that job that she made $8 a day plus car fare, which means they gave her money so she could get the bus and get to work. That was better for them than what they had in Atlanta. And it was tough for them. My brother will describe how they moved from place to place often because they had 7 children and many places didn't want that many kids in their space. So they'd have to lie about how many kids they had and try to hide. And then when someone discovered they had all these people in the place, they had to move again. And so it wasn't easy for them, but they took the risk for a better life. And they did ultimately create a much better life. They went on from those kinds of jobs to my dad working for McDonnell Aircraft, what we would know as McDonnell Douglas. And so they did move up in life and got to the point where my mom didn't need to work anymore. By the time I was growing up, just my dad was working. And so that they instilled in me too. And I've taken risk. I've moved and lived in several places, taken different jobs, tried new things because of what I saw my parents do. You know, there's no guarantee, but when you know that there is more available to you, you have to be willing to bet on yourself, do something different because you want something that you haven't had before.
I just love that story. Thank you for sharing that. I know you also said, like, when you came home, your mom was always there and making lunches and dinners and breakfast. Mm-hmm. And so they really transformed their situation by making that move. And again, giving you kind of that launch pad to grow from. So
yeah, my siblings would say I had it easy. You're welcome. I'm honored to share. It's my story. It's a great story. To me, it is a success story. When you take 2 people who were poor and uneducated, had all these kids, they took a bet on themselves, moved and made a great life. And now both of my parents have passed, but I know they would be so proud if they could see how much success exists now in our family, how many college graduates and people with higher degrees, even terminal degrees in their field of study, how many business owners we have, homeowners we have, all of those things. And it came from them.
I love that. I love it. Thank you for sharing that. So, Lisa, there's 2 questions I always ask everyone on the podcast. What are 1 or 2 songs that are on your power playlist and why?
Listen, first of all, I love music. And so for you to ask me to narrow it down to 2 songs, like that's so hard to do. But
as many as you like to share.
No. One of the songs that's on my power playlist right now is Mary J. Blige's I'm Fine, right? My life is just fine. Sometimes I have to remind myself of that when the challenges come, like I would not change my life. As the song says, my life is just fine. So that's one that gets me energized. And then C is Unstoppable. That's another one. Like I am unstoppable today. Yeah. So those kinds of songs really just inspire me, get me pumped up and ready to take on the day, make me feel like a superhero.
Love it. I love it. What is one book that you would say has helped you thrive in business?
Oh my gosh. See, there again, you want me to narrow it down. If you see my background, there's tons of books on my shelf. So you know that I do love to read. But I think the one that I'm going to pick today is a book that is really all about how you can take small things and make a big difference. It's so key because often we think that we have to make these huge changes, sweeping things that will drive success. And that's really not the case all the time. It is you can make small, impactful decisions that will really transform one's business and life in general. And so that is why I would pick that book. It's Seth Godin's Small is the New Big is the title of the book.
Great. Thank you for sharing that.
Welcome.
So Lisa, if folks want to connect with you or learn more about Ascentum, where can they find you?
First of all, I love making new connections. And so you can find me on LinkedIn. I am Lisa L. Baker on LinkedIn. You can follow Ascentum on Instagram and Facebook at Ascentum. That's ASCENTIM. And I would love to connect, reach out. And of course, it's ascentum.com.
All right. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for your time today. This has been a pleasure chatting with you, and I'm excited to see what you do next.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor.